Welcome to the History Project. My name is Pete and this is George. In this week's episode, we're going to be delving into a gloomy 13th century crypt and climbing to the top of a church's tower to grab a view of the medieval Cinque Ports town of Sandwich from all 360 degrees.
Right, see you shortly, Pete. St Peter's has an amazing past. It was built on the ruins of a previous church that was destroyed in battle. It provided shelter for Protestant refugees when Sandwich was hit by plague in 1564, and it had its foundations shaken to the core when its original church tower collapsed.
The oldest part of this beautiful structure is over here. Some of these stones were laid shortly after the Norman conquest and were part of the original church that was built here. Unfortunately, during a conflict between the Cinque Ports and the French in 1216, the church was destroyed.
This church was built in its place. It's believed to be the handiwork of white friars who came here from France in the 13th century. During the 14th century, the town of Sandwich prospered as a port, and funds were made available to improve this church. Chapels were built and new windows were added.
The port of Sandwich flourished for many years, ferrying countless cargoes to far-off lands and employing most of the townsfolk. But by the middle of the 16th century, the port began to silt up, and so did the money.
In 1560, Queen Elizabeth I granted a licence allowing around 25 Flemish families who were fleeing religious persecution on the continent to live right here in Sandwich. They were talented weavers and quickly established looms working with English wool, creating a prosperous business that would provide Sandwich with the support it needed.
A few years later though, in the year 1564, the prosperity of the town would take a grave turn for the worse when Sandwich was dealt a severe dose of the plague. To discourage the spread of infection amongst the townsfolk, St Peter's Church was given to the Protestant weavers. It's really hard to imagine the fear they would have felt as they huddled in this building deep in prayer.
Thankfully, plague finally left the town of Sandwich, but not before it had taken the lives of many of its people. So where did they store the bodies? Come with us and we'll find out. This is the first time I've been inside a church crypt, and they really are as spooky as they say. This part of the church dates all the way back to the 13th century, and it's where they used to store bodies, possibly when the graveyard became full.
Can you imagine what this would have looked like, full of corpses? What really strikes me is this arched ceiling. It's really quite beautiful. The Cinque Ports town of Sandwich thrived, going from strength to strength as the years went past. But from time to time it did have its fair share of the troubles. No more so than in the year 1661, when the town was hit by an earthquake, which shook the ground and brought the original church tower at St Peter's crashing down.
It landed on top of the church's south aisle, completely destroying it and creating a garden in its place. Very recently, a project began to excavate the ground here, and the Canterbury Archaeological Trust and Dover's Archaeological Group began a dig to learn more about this amazing building's past.
Over the course of several weekends, they managed to determine what actually lay below the ground here. and in the process they discovered clay pipes, oyster shells, shards of glass and even old coins. But the most amazing artefact they found was a segment of pottery believed to date from the early 8th century, hundreds of years before the church was ever built.
Of course, they found many fragments of bone, which were very carefully collected and put aside to be reburied with the respect they deserve. And whilst we're talking of bodies, do you think you could guess at how many have been put in the ground here at St Peter's over the years? Believe it or not, nearly 12,000.
One of the most extraordinary parts of this church's history, though, is the fact that it has a link to the original settlers of America. After leaving the Thames estuary, an argument broke out amongst the Pilgrim Fathers. Anchoring at Sandwich, they came to this very church to pray, before raising anchor and setting sail to Plymouth to take stock for their journey to the New World.
St Peter's remained a parish church until 1948, which was when Sandwich's 3 parishes merged and St Clement's became its church. In 1952, this church was offered to Sir Roger Manwood's school for use as their chapel, but sadly, as the years wore on, the repair work needed to the tower and roof mounted up, and it was beyond the resources of both the school and the parish.
Thankfully, in October 1974, because of its architectural importance, St Peter's Church was given to the redundant Churches Fund, which is now the Church's Conservation Trust. The essential repair work was carried out to this beautiful Grade 1 listed building, securing it for future generations to enjoy. And they didn't stop there.
During the summer of 2015, the Trust asked the Friends of St Peter's if they had any ideas on how they could improve the visitor experience here at St Peter's. The idea the Friends came up with was brilliantly ambitious. They suggested building a brand new staircase all the way to the top of the tower, offering visitors unparalleled views of the most complete medieval town in the whole of England.
Now let's go and climb all 114 steps.
Wow! The views from up here are incredible. You can see right across this part of Kent. You can even see Sandwich Bay in the distance.
It's lovely to see how many rooftops still have the original Kent peg tiles. And the curvy ridge lines that can be seen across the town are testament to their age.
So there we have St Clement's Church. Nowadays that is the parish church.
We hope you've enjoyed this week's show. We would like to say a huge thank you to all the wonderful people at the Church's Conservation Trust for all of the great work they do.
And a huge thanks to all the people here at St Peter's Church. Remember folks, the next time you're over in Sandwich, remember to pop in and climb the tower for yourselves. We'll see you all next week.